і прилізуть, блядь, не на свою землю.
During the same day that China and Russia boasted of their military might at the parade in Beijing, Russian President Putin was brought back to reality in his own country. A Russian Il-76 military transport aircraft crash-landed due to a malfunction shortly after takeoff, reported local telegram channel Boris. At 6:30, the plane took off on the Krasnoyarsk-Ulan-Ude flight, but a few minutes after takeoff, it experienced engine problems, forcing the crew to request a landing at the nearest airfield. The plane made an emergency landing at the Cherem-Shanka airfield, which is mainly used by small aircraft rolling 50 meters beyond the runway. The published photo credits show that the crash plane has a distinctive livery and weapons in the tail turret, indicating that it belongs to the Russian Aerospace Forces. According to the Russian media outlet RBC, no one was injured in the crash. The purpose of the flight is unknown, but Russian military transport aircraft are actively used to transfer personnel and special cargo. In addition, these aircraft are used to transport ammunition and weapons from Iran and North Korea. Active operation has affected the number of accidents involving these aircraft. In March last year, an Il-76 caught fire in midair and crashed in the Ivanovo region. Another plane burned down as a result of an engine fire during takeoff in 2023. Militarny also reported that 5 Il-76 transport aircraft were out of service due to the supply of low-quality bearings in Russia. According to researchers, today the Russian Space Forces has more than 120 operational Il-76 aircraft, which are the main working machine of transport aviation. Following the intensification of Ukrainian sabotage and drone strikes, Russia has redeployed a significant number of aircraft from the possible strike zone to eastern airfields. For example, in Pskov, where a large number of Il-76 were based, they almost completely disappeared. According to Sentinel-2 satellite data, Russian aircraft are now moving almost daily to make it harder to detect and destroy them. The Ukrainian Security Service, SBU, has issued a new in absentia suspicion against Russian Judge Konstantin Prostov of the Southern District Military Court, who sentenced captured defenders of Mariupol to long prison terms. In 2024, he gave 2 Ukrainian National Guard fighters 18 years in a strict regime colony under fabricated charges. Both defended Mariupol with the 12th Brigade from the start of the full-scale war. Prostov had already been charged in June for similar sentences against other prisoners of war. Russia's infamously corrupt military police are continuing to make friends and influence people in occupied areas of Ukraine. Russian soldiers are infuriated to be receiving fines for, among other things, smoking in vehicles, on the grounds that smoking kills. The VPs have a deserved reputation for corruption and abuse, and are universally loathed by soldiers, the bane of the Russian army, and a garden of corrupt scum, as one war blogger puts it. Their propensity for issuing on-the-spot fines, which they likely pocket themselves, for trivial infractions is discussed by 2 Russian war bloggers. Andrei Filatov writes, "You can think whatever you want about the military police, but they are certainly not lazy. Their productivity is enviable. They are an extremely active service. We must admit that we are very lucky that law and order on public roads in frontline regions are protected by such lions." Someone described to me a situation involving a military driver. He came under fire in Malinivka and drove away. On the way to Donetsk, on the very first bridge, the military police stopped him and issued some kind of fine or order for smoking in the car. For what reason? The reason. It's logical. Smoking kills, and thus the soldier weakens the combat power of the unit. The second time, literally at the next checkpoint, 20 to 30 minutes later, they stopped him and found fault with the fact that he was not wearing the prescribed uniform. The soldier was driving in armor and a t-shirt. The military police officers cleverly noticed that the t-shirt was not the right color. A violation? And a very serious one. There is no arguing with that. I would have shot him for that, at the very least. The next day, The same soldier was leaving the medical service in Ocheretine. It was fortunate that he immediately encountered an observant military police patrol on the road. The officers noticed that his seatbelt was not fastened. One cannot disagree. A seatbelt increases the chances of surviving a traffic accident. And in the current conditions of increased enemy FPV drone activity, it also increases the chances, but negatively. 5 minutes later, the same driver is stopped again by the military police. The perceptive officer quickly calculates that he could not have driven so fast from the medical service to the place where he was stopped. He was immediately issued another fine. This is where they are falling short a little. In such a situation, I would initiate a special investigation with the detention and confiscation of the vehicle until the circumstances were clarified. Finally, the driver drove off and immediately, after about 20 meters, stopped near a shop. The military police immediately pulled up, although you couldn't tell at first glance, as they were not wearing uniforms, and started climbing into the car, claiming that the driver had not locked it, although he had. But the word of a military policeman is law. These were people without military police headgear or insignia, but they shouted loudly and swore terribly. A car with civilian number plates arrived to assist them, and another military police officer got out and began to draw up a report on the violation, which was about the allegedly unlocked car of the servicemen, and not about the military police officers violating their dress code or whatever else you might think. Why was the military police officer in a car with civilian plates? For the element of surprise. After all, in war, it is essential to use clever tactical maneuvers. The enemy certainly doesn't expect this, and so the front is about to collapse. Take that, enemy! Why is this happening? Half of the military police are former frontline soldiers themselves, some of whom fought in the war, some of whom even took part in assaults. But they don't want to go to the front anymore, so they join the military police and become fucking executive faggots. This is not the work of MI6. They are not being recruited by enemy intelligence agencies to make valiant military police officers behave like faggots. To be a faggot or not to be a faggot is an internal choice made by each individual. Mob and contrabass is even blunter, calling the VPs the bane of the Russian army. Soldiers are only allowed to drive vehicles with black military number plates, but it takes a very long time to acquire them. This gives the VPs plenty of opportunities to obtain bribes. The UAZ van, which had been registered with black military number plates for almost a year, burned down at the depot. Through personal acquaintances, we managed to get a new vehicle from a private civilian enterprise. It can only be driven at the front, as the number plates are white. At this rate of registration, the next black plates will appear in another year. The entire war is being fought at the expense of humanitarian aid and the independent acquisition of all kinds of supplies. Because trucks are not allowed to enter the city, our suppliers cannot pick up parcels in the cities. A trip to pick up humanitarian aid or a parcel turns into a complex logistical operation. People do not order anything because they know that it is unrealistic to receive a parcel. Other departments apparently accept bribes to provide transport with black number plates for a week. I would like to ask how long this hotbed of corruption will continue to thrive in our rear, paralyzing the most basic processes. Russians are coming into land that isn't theirs. The war on the positions of the 3rd Assault Brigade.
Просто свист уже и ебались. Дерева зламали нам. А вообще тут красиво.
І прилізуть, блядь, не на свою землю.
Вперед.
Вперед. Тут ёбу. Там не написано ёб. Значит, не образовано.
Якщо ці все-таки будуть лізти по двоє-троє, а ми їх тут будемо, то мені все подобається.
Путь пехотинця.
Це еліта. Кожен должен пройти це. Після якоїсь війни.
Это безумный доктор Мариарти такой придумал у себя в лаборатории.
Хто сняв і ми не відкриваємо. Там розтяжка.
Your face will show in cinema.
Oh no. I'm sorry, mama.
Все, будемо продовжувати рух.
Russians have likely caused a new environmental disaster in the Black Sea. A massive oil slick is currently drifting toward Crimea following a Russian tanker accident and an oil spill near Novorossiysk. According to the latest data, the slick covers approximately 350 square kilometers. President Trump on Putin. I have learned things that will be very interesting, I think, in the next few days. You'll find out.
Have you spoken with President Putin in the past week? Have you spoken with President Putin in the past week?
Yeah, I don't want to. I have learned things that will be very interesting. I think in the next few days you'll find out.
Any consequences if there isn't some type of announcement of a meeting with President Putin and President Zelensky?
Yeah,
and what could those consequences be?
We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what they do and what happens. I'm watching it very closely. Last week they lost 7,000 between the two countries. 7,313 soldiers, to be somewhat exact.
China held its largest military parade in history, devoted to the 85th anniversary of ending the Second World War. Leaders of 26 states are attending the 2025 China Victory Day parade in Beijing. Leaders of authoritarian regimes are also present. Putin of Russia, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, Lukashenko of Belarus, Masoud Pezeshkian of Iran. And we have to admit, Trump nailed it this time with his message to China. The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it to secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump. Alongside his European buddy and puppet Fico, Putin urged Eastern European countries to cut off gas and electricity supplies to Ukraine, claiming it would force Kyiv to understand the limits of its actions against Russian infrastructure. Clowns.
The Ukrainian side, for a long time, even a couple of years ago, did not take any actions regarding civilian infrastructure, especially in the winter period. And they endured for a very long time when, Ukrainian troops were constantly striking our energy facilities. After that, they started to respond.
And we respond, of course, well, let's say, seriously. That's true.
In response, the Ukrainian side tries to harm us, but also harms our partners. What can be said? After all, Ukraine receives a significant amount of energy resources through its neighbors in Eastern Europe. Close their gas supplies that come through reverse flow, cut off their electricity supplies, and they will immediately understand that there are some limits to their behavior in the area of violating others' interests.
Air reconnaissance from the 55th Separate Artillery Brigade has identified Russian UAV launch points that were struck right after. Destroying Russian UAV launch points is crucial for Ukraine because it directly reduces the intensity and frequency of drone attacks on cities, infrastructure, and frontline positions. Russian UAVs are widely used for both reconnaissance and strike missions, particularly kamikaze drones like Shahed models supplied by Iran. These drones are relatively cheap and produced in large numbers, but their effectiveness depends on secure and hidden launch sites close to Ukrainian territory. By striking these points, Ukraine not only disrupts planned attacks, but also forces Russia to move launch operations further away, decreasing the drone's effective range and accuracy.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. He's doing the job every day.